Previously on Degrassi.
Whatever it takes, I know I can make it through.
China may have lifted its ban on Canadian pork, but when will the world lift its ban on another Canadian export? No, not him. Getting warmer. There we go. Degrassi was a teen drama series that originally ran from 1979 to 1989. In 2001 it was revived as Degrassi: The Next Generation, which ran in various forms until 2017. It may have changed names more than a few times, but it was certainly around throughout the 2000s, starting before and living well beyond some other well-known shows of that time. By the time season 14 of the revived series aired on Teen Nick in the US and Family Channel in Canada, some meddling network executive finally decided to deliver Degrassi a killer blow. The community was stunned. For about a day before Netflix heroically swooped in, answering creators Stephen Stone and Linda Schuyler's SOS. Degrassi was back, baby, and better than ever. Or so we hoped. Degrassi Next Class, or Netflix Class as I like to call it, premiered in 2016 and ran for 4 10-episode seasons. Then it ended. For real this time. But let's face it, this is an industry that is largely content to rehash old ideas so long as the mindless consumers keep eating it up. It's only a matter of time before Degrassi comes back in some capacity, so how should it be tackled? Let's take a look and see. As I mentioned in the intro, Degrassi has rebranded itself more than a few times. It was actually due to one of these rebrandings that I discovered the show. In 2010, in the lead up to its 10th season, Degrassi: The Next Generation rebranded as simply Degrassi. This change was because many of the old guard cast members who had been a mainstay on the show for many years were eventually leaving. The younger characters from the old show remained to keep the ship steady, and then a few new characters were added. This was all perfectly demonstrated in the Shark in the Water promo, arguably Degrassi's finest hour. This promo is excellent, whether you know any of the characters or not, an ideal jumping on point. Instantly I wanted to see what this show was about, and I'm still glad I did. For many years I saw this as a show that is really too big to fail. It was the kind of show that gets leeway from the network if the quality or the ratings drop, in a similar way to The Simpsons, just on a smaller scale. And that was the case with Degrassi for a while. It always bounced back, even after the cancellation scare in 2015. No one other than the sensationalist mainstream news outlets really thought that this was the end. The fact that they were reacting at all says a lot about how Degrassi is much bigger than its viewing figures. Contrast this to the ending of Next Class, which faded away with barely a whimper after season 4. And that was the ultimate failing of Netflix Class. Finding a new home on Netflix could, and probably should, have introduced Degrassi to a brand new audience, as well as reigniting the interest of long-time viewers who may have been disillusioned by season 13 and 14, which, as most fans agree, dropped the ball after a stellar season 12. But frankly, after a massive hoo-ha regarding the initial cancellation, no one seemed to care about Netflix Class. Fan discussion seemed lower than it was before, and the entire run was fairly uneventful, even if the seasons themselves certainly had their fair share of events. I may make a more detailed video on Next Class in the future, but for now, here are my thoughts on each season. Serviceable, yet underwhelming. A good idea, but poorly executed. Overall, an excellent season of television. Dropped the ball after a stellar season 3. So if this attempt at a revamp failed, where did it go wrong? And how could Degrassi be brought back? In 2020, for instance. I've come up with 5 options on how to do it. And I know, you are elected to lead and not to read, so I'll read them out for you. I would really like to see an anthology series set in Degrassi. The show is called Degrassi, not E. Claire or Emma or Keeping Up with the Hollingsworth or whatever else they come up with. So the school should be the main character and take centre stage. I think a 10-episode season would be a good place to start here. Episodes would be chronological in that the first episode might cover the first day back after summer and the last episode might cover a graduation ceremony. The reason I like this idea is that it would get rid of any prerequisite knowledge needed to enjoy the show. The time has come for another hard reboot. No previous school characters would return, at least not in a main role. Armstrong can still teach, of course, Miss O could come back and make another kid's year, etc. The way I would do it is to have the main characters from one story occasionally appear as an extra on a later or previous episode. For example, in say the 8th episode of the season, it could be about a girl wanting to ask another girl to prom and everything that entailed. The resolution to that plot is the other girl saying yes. Then in the next episode, when we're following some other couple at prom, the two girls would be dancing, having a good time in the background. That would allow certain plots to keep ticking away even after they had their moment in the spotlight, just to keep the school feeling real. I would want as many extras as possible to be actual actors, who could potentially have a storyline one day. There can still be sequel episodes, of course, and characters can appear in more than one story potentially, but I would like the show to get away from being too beholden to a certain group of characters. It felt like since 2001, the writers of Degrassi tried too hard to hold on to characters that really should have left the show seasons before they did. The obvious and go-to joke is Shantae, but this could be said about numerous characters. Emma's class should have never been followed to college. Even if those episodes had been really great, I still wouldn't have liked their inclusion because spending time there takes time away from the characters still at school. No character should be bigger than the show, and for years characters were lingering around too long. School years were also getting to the point where they took 60 odd episodes to run their course. This meant that characters were never graduating. Get them off the books and bring in new ones more often. It keeps the show fresh. The other issue with characters being around too long is that they start to suffer from diminishing returns. When a character has already been through so much, teen pregnancy, sexual assault, dealing with cancer, death of a friend, and boyfriend severely self-harming, it becomes more difficult to relate to a character's plight. I'm not saying that people don't exist who have had just as eventful a life as certain Degrassi characters, but it is rare. An anthology series would allow a combination of very dark themes and lighter themes to be explored, without having to load them all onto certain big-name characters. So this isn't exactly the most original idea, in fact it's very popular amongst the fans, and for something of a good reason. In this scenario, the season would begin with Simpson's son, Jack, starting at Degrassi in grade 9. We're in a position now where there is more than a realistic possibility that this would happen. With all the retcons already, I can't imagine one more hurting the show too much. So basically, Jack will turn 15 in whatever year the show comes back. Maybe he gets recast, or maybe one of the kids who used to play him will have grown up to be a Leonardo DiCaprio type. In that unlikely case, then of course I'll give him the nod. This would set the stage for a very similar situation to the one that kicked off The Next Generation, in that we start with a mostly clean slate. I would maybe throw in a few other kids from the show who might be about Jack's age, and the parents could return if they wanted to. I can't imagine Nina Dobrev would be willing to return for anything more than a cameo, though if she did, then by all means be a main character. The more the merrier. I have a couple of conditions about this scenario. The first is to keep the main character count down. If Next Class taught us anything, it's that a 10 episode season of half-hour episodes is too short on time to focus intensely on a wide range of characters. I still believe that Degrassi should try to find a home in a streaming service, just because that is probably the best way to get it seen by as many people as possible. The second condition, and I suppose that you could say this is a controversial dollop of special sauce, is that Simpson would no longer be principal of Degrassi, and he will have moved on to a nearby school to be a regular teacher again. The opening of the show would go something like this. Jack, come on, you're gonna be late for school.
You mean we're gonna be late for school, Dad?
Actually, Jack, I'm not going with you.
Oh yeah, probably best for my cred if we don't arrive together.
Jack, I was let go at the end of last semester. I've got a new job down the street.
What? Why didn't you tell me?
I wanted to wait until it was dramatically appropriate. I understand, Dad. Yes, I believe that Archibald Simpson should finally step aside as principal of Degrassi. Let's face it, he has no authority. If you'll allow me to rant about Simpson's tenure as principal for a second, I would appreciate it. Simpson started off as a caring teacher who appeared to be in teaching for the right reasons. He always seemed in touch with the students, but not too in touch, despite the accusations. However, once he got promoted to the hot seat, he just couldn't stop slipping up. I mean, the dance in All Falls Down probably should have gotten him fired alone. Then after a slightly better spell, when he stopped letting students walk over him, things started to slip again. Eventually, he actually gets suspended, probably because he couldn't control the school anymore. I expect that he was only brought back as principal in Next Class for brand recognition, because no canonical explanation was ever given. Say what you like about Miss Pill in season 14, but she came in with a genuine game plan to get Degrassi, a school with an awful disciplinary record, back on track. I know for the sake of drama, something eventually would have to give with her strictness, but she still deserved longer in the job, especially when Simpson starts making the same mistakes in the mishandling of situations in Next Class. But yeah, Jack could should certainly go to Degrassi. I'm not sure how big a pool that would be for old school fans unless they start bringing in a lot of OG cast members in prominent roles again. And if the audience is there for it, then go for it. I do believe if they took what they learned from Next Class and wrote some solid episodes, then this idea could work very well. The quality would have to prevail over nostalgia, however. Now, none of the prior options have done anything with the class that, after Next Class ended, still had a year to go before graduating. And that is a shame. So how would I go about concluding their story? A straight up continuation is out of the question. Too much time has passed, and actors have aged and moved on to other projects. Though I have to say the lovely Sarah Way's class could still pass for high school senior easily.
You're not cute.
However, what I would propose is a web series similar to the form of Eli Dorm Life. One episode per main character. Frankie, Dorm Life. Lola, Dorm Life. Hunter, Cell Life, etc. That would be a nice way to tide fans over until a proper reboot, and give Next Class a definitive conclusion. These characters were being billed as the class to shepherd Degrassi into its next era. They deserve a send-off. I'm sure most, if not all of the cast will be game for a one-off return. Remember Kids of Degrassi Street? I know I certainly don't, but it was a thing, once upon a time. A thing I've never watched. I did warn you, I'm not a true fan. Kids of Degrassi Street kick-started the franchise, and it featured younger kids. I propose that the show could come back and focus on younger kids again, around 10 to 13, at least for a while. There is an oversaturation of high school shows, and not too many shows that deal with younger children, that aren't sitcoms, and actually have some dark themes. That's partially because there are many hurdles to overcome. Audiences might not want to watch, and child actors might not be able to sell the material. If they got it right though, Degrassi could really tell some unique stories and kickstart the franchise again. A simple 10-episode season that deals with a group of kids and the highs of lows that they experience on an everyday basis could be powerful, and it is a gap in the current TV climate that Degrassi could potentially fill. Picture this. A Degrassi student disappears and a bunch of 20-something teens have to find out what happened, but they also have their own drama on the side. Also, they are left 13 tapes to listen to. And also, they're trying to find out who the Degrassi dirt spiller is. And then at the end of the season, everything is resolved. But then there's a cliffhanger that sets up another season of more of the same. Sounds great, right? To network executives, maybe. Degrassi as a property was undoubtedly mishandled by Netflix. While the show itself was not terrible, a fair amount of episodes and storylines didn't work. Degrassi fans seem to be divided into two camps. The first, who love Next Class and seldom acknowledge its failings, and the second, who hate everything about Next Class. As you might have guessed, I fall somewhere in between. Both groups can agree that the marketing for Next Class was too sparse, and what we did get was uninspired, and that was a shame. However, blindly praising a show just because it's over doesn't promote self-improvement. Faults in the show itself do have to take at least a bit of the blame. In the same way, blindly despising a show and justifying this because it was cancelled is equally inane. The show did a lot of things well. I'm fairly confident that Degrassi will eventually come back. I feel the creators missed a trick in not exploiting the Drake video that came out midway through last year, but nevertheless there will be other opportunities, and in a television environment where what was old is constantly being made new again, it's hard to imagine Degrassi missing out on a nostalgia-filled reboot sometime soon. Thanks for watching, it means a lot. And how would you guys reboot Degrassi? Let me know in the comments. Or make a video yourself and tweet it to me on Twitter @LunarAlto. Also, like my face range page, and, of course, send me PG pictures over InfChat. And that should tide you over to the next video, which will hopefully be out soon. So see you then. Catch you later, Panthers.